So we are here with Roman Fernandez, one-on-one. How you doing, Roman?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Mitch?
Very well. So, let's just jump right into it. You're related to the Kiss world. How?
Through Bill Aucoin.
Yeah.
Bill Aucoin was my partner of 15, 16 years, and Bill was Kiss's manager. So there you go.
So there you go. So there's so much to talk about. Recently I interviewed Kenny Kerner, who was the producer of their first two albums, who obviously worked at some point with Bill, and he said that so many nice things, that Bill was an outstanding human being and an outstanding person, and he also said that Bill belonged in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I agree. Do you think he'll ever get there?
Wow. I hope so. I mean, other managers have been inducted, and as it pertains to Kiss, I don't see why Bill wouldn't follow suit. And I totally agree with Kenny. And by the way, I just heard that interview today, and that was very, very cool of Kenny. I don't think I've ever. We may have talked on the phone. I'm not sure, but as far as I can recollect, I don't think I've met Kenny. But that was uber sweet of him, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of people who actually told me the same thing, that Bill belongs, and of course, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I think we all agree, quite frankly. Now, what do you think? What was it about Bill that made him so special? That made him where somebody like Kenny would say he belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, you mean professionally or
Well,
personal?
well, well. Let's start off with professionally, and then maybe work down to personally. I mean, I never met Bill. Actually, you know what? I did meet Bill once at a Kiss convention years and years ago, back in the early '90s. But what was it about Bill that made him successful?
That made him successful.
Yeah, I mean, he was
It,
successful, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, no, in my opinion, what made him successful was the person that he was,
Right.
and this is why, I really wish that people had gotten to know Bill outside of the Kiss world. I mean, certainly building that empire gives him credence to be held in such high regard. The wind is kicking up real hard, so please don't mind me if I get a little spooked. I got floor to ceiling glass windows.
No,
Um,
no hurricanes tonight, though, right?
it's South Florida, man. You never know what you're gonna get. Um, in any case, so yeah, so I only say independently of Kiss. I mean, obviously, if you're involved with someone like Kiss and build an empire like that, I mean, of course, that's you must have some a certain skill set
Right.
to be successful if you build an empire like that. But I really think that the reason that Bill is as successful as he was is, first of all, again, business savvy, and we can explore all the little minutia.
It's my
It's fun.
favorite word.
I've started using that word. I've never used that up until like some weeks ago when I started watching these shows. Um, but ultimately, look at it's of course my opinion may be biased, but not really because it's the reason I ended up with Bill. He was a human being like nobody I've ever met.
Okay.
By that, what I mean is he was an incredibly optimistic person, very, very positive, always working towards something, always conjuring up some kind of idea in his head of what he wanted to do, what he could do, how he could help other people, and it all didn't come necessarily from a business angle. He had that big a heart. He just wanted to help. He wanted to do good. And he was, as I've said before, he was like a little kid.
Right.
And by that, what I mean is, when you're a kid, you dream. And at some point in your late teens, early 20s, kind of reality sets in. For Bill, reality never set in. He was always living in this ongoing dream world.
Yeah.
And I think that is what allowed him to think as big as he did and dream as big as he did. Whereas I think a lot of people, as savvy as they may be, when they get to be of a certain age, they start thinking a little bit pragmatically. I've certainly been guilty of that. But Bill, I think, instilled that sense of wonderment upon people.
Right.
And if you knew Bill for only a microscopic, time window in your life, he would make a deep impact. And this is firsthand. I know a lot of people who met Bill in passing, who asked me years later, "Hey, by the way, Bill really made a strong impression on me, and because of that, I went and did this or I did that." So Bill was just very influential. It's hard to describe unless you actually met him.
Right.
But he was never derogatory. He always found a way of critiquing without making you feel bad, in a way that actually inspired you, and would shed insight that you would never have found on your own. Well, I can't speak for everybody, but even with me, I mean, when I first met him, I was working in advertising, and I got to a position where I really had to make a call as to which way I was going to go, and I should have asked for something, but I was a little bit scared and maybe wasn't all too secure. And Bill was the one who, again, in one swift conversation said, "Listen, lay out A, B, and C, and go and ask what you deserve." And he got me to a whole new level that I never thought I'd get to. He's also the one that actually gave me the courage to take the plunge and go off on my own, which was scary. I would have probably never done it on my own, but he gave me the confidence to go out there and.
What did you go out and do alone? I mean, so you were in advertising, and Bill gives you this motivational speech. And by the way, while sort of going over the notes on Bill Aucoin, I came up with a quote that I think speaks to what you're talking about now. And he had said years ago in an interview, "I don't have a fear of doing something everyone doesn't believe in."
Yeah,
and that sort of sums up what you just said, right?
Absolutely. And he had very little regard. Not that he certainly respected people's opinions,
right?
But it was like a sift. He could take what was useful from people's feedback and discard what was irrelevant to his cause. And he may heed some warnings, but ultimately, if he had something set in mind, you were not going to stop him. I mean, he was unstoppable that way.
So you met Bill back in 1994.
I believe it was 94.
And so this was way removed of his affiliation with KISS. What did he bring in terms of KISS World to you? Was he still in discussions with them in terms of running catalog, or was it sort of like, no, they just...
As far as I knew, there was absolutely nothing. In fact, again, we didn't talk a whole lot of KISS when we got together, partly because I wasn't a huge fan. No disrespect. There's songs that I like by KISS. It's just, it wasn't the avenue I went. I was listening to other groups. So, and much like Bill, I was not very concerned about the past. I'm more concerned about the now and where do we go from here. So the topic of KISS never came up.
Okay.
I of course, look at it. When you live with someone 24/7, things will come up. And I believe he had said that he really wasn't talking to the guys. I don't know if for any particular reason. And of course, living with him 24/7, never heard him talk to any of the guys until a few years after we got together. And I think he and Gene actually started talking, or maybe he and Paul. Well, he and Gene, I remember specifically. And of course, with time, they did kind of rekindle that relationship. But no, Bill was not working with, at that point, he was not working with them at all.
Not at all. Did he ever give you a sense of how difficult it was? I mean, I'm just assuming that it might have been difficult as a gay man in the 70s with a rock band and sort of that very macho environment to succeed. Did he ever say, "Boy, it was so hard and I was promoters"? None of that?
Never. I'm not sure it was ever even a topic of conversation.
Okay.
But...
yeah, and I wouldn't know. I wasn't there, but I'm just assuming because you see how things are today.
Certainly.
And you can imagine in 1970 in this macho rock and roll, sex, drugs, and women kind of lifestyle that being a gay man, he must have been, but it wasn't.
Well, again, much like you, I wasn't there. We didn't discuss it much. He did talk, of course, about him and Sean. Right. I know that when he went to certain events, I think he took a date.
So there was some kind of covering up, or...
I think you know,
PR move? I mean, I don't want to.
yeah, maybe it's a PR thing. Maybe it's just kind of a tradition, I guess. I don't know. Bill never went huge out of his way. Well, again, I met him in the '90s.
Right.
He never really went out of his way to hide it.
Right.
He also didn't parade it. I mean, like anybody else, I suppose, right? I mean, you're not going to bring your wife to work. But
right.
you know, there were times that yeah, I'd go into an office with him somewhere and meet with someone. And although at that point we were working professionally together, so he doesn't introduce me as, "Hey, this is my boyfriend."
Right.
You know, this is Roman, and you know, we co-manage a group, or he does marketing and whatnot. But eventually it would come out. I mean, we certainly didn't hide it, but we also didn't have flashcards, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So.
But, okay, so I've always been curious about that because, you know, as a Kiss fan, being 5, 6, 7 years old at that time, that wasn't the topic that would come up. And when I found out years later, I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I just never realized. And so, you know.
Right.
So what is your dealings now with Kiss? I mean, he has talked about in interviews that he had a whole bunch of footage and songs. And do you manage anything like that? Any vault of unreleased goodies?
Yeah, we can't talk about that. No, I don't. Why? That was cryptic. Listen, do I manage any of that stuff? I think.
Oh, okay. Is there stuff? Can we ask that?
Look, at again, there may be.
Okay.
There's stuff.
Okay.
I hate doing the air quotes, but stuff is the operative term.
Right.
I don't have a point of reference because I don't know of these items which ones have been made public, which haven't.
Right.
It all hasn't been cataloged. And I don't know. For all I know, what exists is completely worthless. Well, not worthless, but it may be nothing special. I don't know. It's a process, and you know, to a great degree, there's stuff in boxes here that I haven't opened since Bill passed away, and I just haven't really cared to look.
You know, as a kid,
and I don't know that there's anything. I don't think there's a hidden vault in any of those boxes. Listen. If there's anything big to be revealed, if the time is right, when the time is right, it will. Listen, the last 3.5 years have still been a process of kind of getting through this for me.
Right.
I have no dealings with Kiss at all. Not professionally. Like I said, I may, you know, Paul and I may talk a little bit every now and again, and me and Gigi, and I'm certainly friends with a lot of the Kiss family. I mean, Lydia's like family to me, as is Richie, Fontana, that is, and people from Aucoin Management. And I have no dealings with Kiss. And whatever is around me that may be vault worthy or not, I'm not going to use air quotes again this whole show, I swear.
I'll do them for you.
Yeah, please. Again, if there is something that's vault worthy, it will be cataloged, and we'll figure it out at that point. But I'm still. Listen, I still haven't opened Bill's suitcases from when he came back from New York, and he ended up in the hospital. So, I'm not exactly in denial, but it's nothing I'm in a hurry to do anything about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I have any possessions either. We're speaking hypothetically, right? Seriously, I really don't know. I don't know. I haven't really made an effort to go searching for stuff.
No, I think I asked the question because the Kiss fan in me, and I think the Kiss fans out there, think that there's this holy grail of Kiss stuff hidden somewhere, and they usually say it must be Bill's garage. It's got to be somewhere in Bill's garage.
Do you know what's funny? I can relate to that. I grew up as a huge fan of Rush.
Right. Oh.
And I don't know. What's that?
Our famous Canadian band.
Rush and Triumph. I am all about Rush and Triumph.
See, you should move from Miami up to Montreal. I'll trade you.
I almost did. In the late 80s, actually, in 1989, I went to Montreal. I even found a place in Old Montreal. We don't have to talk about that. That's a boring story. But the point is, I love Montreal.
Great.
So what are we talking about? Rush. The idea being that I don't know if I got. Remember Rockline?
Mm-hmm.
Does that still exist?
The show, yeah.
Yeah, it does? Okay. I don't know if I got on Rockline or my buddy got on Rockline. And I think we talked to one of the members of Russia. I don't know if it was Alec. I don't know. But I remember asking, hey, so is there a vault with a whole bunch? Because back then, in the 80s, this is mid 80s, you didn't have such a huge amounts of media kind of flying around,
Right.
So all you knew is what was released via the outlets. And, we were Rush fanatics. We wanted to see, Rush during the 2112 tour at the Maple Leaf, whatever it was. And I think, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm making this all up in my head, but if I remember correctly, I think they actually laughed at us, thinking, "No, there's no vault. There's things kind of spread about maybe, but there's no vault. I can guarantee you this: there's no vault. At least if there is, I don't know the combination to it. But there's stuff kind of lying around in different places. And one of these days, when we're vacuuming and we come upon something, we'll pick it up and go, "Hey, look it."
Well,
So,
I volunteer to come and catalog whatever is lying around.
how about you volunteer to vacuum? That'd be
I could
awesome.
there you go. I'm in for that. Let's vacuum now. Right behind you there, I see the Lyn Christopher album. Right back there.
Our picture.
That's something that you've recently had a part in re-releasing, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the association with Lynn and how you came about to re-release it. I mean, Kiss fans obviously know that Gene and Paul got their first start. They sang backups, yada yada yada. How do we get to 2014 and your involvement with Lynn?
Well, it happened in 2010,
Okay.
in December of 2010. I said, I was putting away stuff of Bill's and closing the chapter on some stuff, and I came upon a fax that said, "Bill, please help me." And she said, "LL Cool J has sampled my music without permission, and people are using it. And what's happening? Please help me." And just to clear the record, we've before I forget, a disclaimer to the sentence is LL Cool J, everything seems to be in the clear, so nobody start writing letters to LL and pissing him off, okay?
Right. Don't get lawyers involved, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we already have enough lawyers. We don't need any more. Although they've been phenomenal. In any case, so what happened? So I picked up the phone. I figured, let me give her a call, and I was going to point her in the right direction. That was going to be the end of it.
Right.
But you interviewed Lynn. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with her, instantly. So we started talking. She started telling me her story, and I was completely fascinated by it. And I had just come out of that was 2010. I had just done a bunch of research on music law, which I found very interesting. But more than anything else, it was really Lynn's, benevolence. Her benevolence. She was a sweetheart. The story was super compelling. Not only were Gene and Paul on this record, but also was sampled by all these different hip hop artists. And then the fact that she had signed with Paramount, and as soon as she signed with Paramount, Paramount was bought up by ABC, then MCA, then Universal, and she'd recorded Electric Lady, and it was all interesting. So what happened is we developed a relationship, and I said, "Listen, let me see what I can do to help you out." And I started making a bunch of phone calls and just doing research. And I finally put together a docket of information, and that was enough for me to build a case and take it to an attorney in LA.
You're not an attorney right now. I mean, you're not in law right now.
I'm not now. I never have been.
Okay, because I just
But it's something, to be honest. If there's any entertainment lawyers out there that need a hand, I'd love to help out. It's a process that I found very rewarding.
Okay.
Which I was kind of surprised at, because I'm more of a creative guy. Doing research is not really my bag. But when I'm helping out a friend, and Lynn had become a friend, and to pick up these bits and pieces, I guess it's much like a Kiss fan. You start accumulating all this knowledge, and with every little tidbit of information, it's a new aha moment. And that's what it was for me working on this thing with Lynn. And as I've always said, it was like solving a very cool Scooby-Doo mystery, with lots of Scooby snacks. So in any case, it was a very interesting puzzle to put together. And it took no less than, it's December of 2010. it wasn't until summer of 2013 that we really found some resolution with LL.
Right.
Because that's what I call him now, LL. That's a joke. I've never talked to him. But then in May, turns out Havoc of Mobb Deep had sampled her. And he ended up on the Billboard charts. So now the story takes a different turn, because whereas so far I was working on a case involving past events, now I'm seeing things happen in real time. So now I'm even more geared up to kind of figure out what this is all about. So yeah, in the summer of 2013, we brought what I think is some resolution. I have to speak a little bit vaguely for legal reasons.
Of course.
What I think is some resolution to the LL Cool J situation. And again, people don't start making phone calls to LL or his management team, because that all seems to be cool. But with every answer that we got, there were more questions.
Okay.
It's like finding, the origins of the origins of the universe. And that's every time you think you've got an answer to something, all it does is open up a whole litany of questions. And here we are, 3 years and 2 months later, and I mean, I never really thought we were going to see the release of this album again, and it was one of those things that we were thriving for, and Universal didn't seem to want to do it. It took a lot of talking,
right?
Because that's what people do, and to finally get this released. And but there's still a bunch of unanswered questions and unanswered issues that we're working through. So we're not even a quarter of the way through this.
But, I find this actually very fascinating. So,
me too.
Maybe if you can, for a young musician that might be watching this, who might have sampled 30 Seconds of Love Gun on their album, or might have sampled, Spirit of the Radio on their song, what are their obligations to the artist, and what are some of the legal things? I mean, I know you're not a lawyer and stuff, but
you got to get it cleared.
Okay.
It's very simple. I don't go to your house and take your favorite chandelier. I don't know.
But is there an amount of time? Can you sample 3 seconds and it's okay, but 30 seconds is bad, or is it verboten? You can't.
It's as far as I know, and again, I am not a music attorney, but as
Right.
far as I'm
But
concerned,
from your experience.
no, there's no amount of time that is permissible.
Okay.
Maybe there is legally, but I mean, as an artist manager, if anybody sampled any of my group's music, even if it was a quark of a second, you're going to be hearing from me.
Okay, and so that's okay. So that's interesting, and of course that means you have to pay mechanical fees and you have to pay all that stuff, right?
Well, there's all that, but you got to get it cleared first.
Okay.
You got to get it cleared by whoever owns the master and by the publisher.
Okay, so that's a nice, fun, lengthy process, right? And of course,
no, you know what? Actually, it's not. It can be fairly simple. I mean, look, in Lyn's case, it's more complicated because we're talking about a recording that's 40 years old, and
that had been forgotten.
What's that?
And that had been forgotten, and that's
well. Apparently, the hip hop community didn't forget about it.
Right.
Someone's kept an eye on it, but yeah, from the standpoint of who owns the master, and as we've said, we claim to own the master. But other people may think differently, and contracts that were 40 years old are all but gone now. So good luck with that. So in our case, yeah, it's very, very difficult. But generally, if you want to sample anything that's been put on tape or CD over the last 20 years, it should be fairly easy to track down who the owner of the master is and who the publisher is.
Right. So that's where the issue comes up with you. It's not with the artist who's sampled it, but it's to prove that you have ownership of it. That's the complicated part in the whole thing.
For us, yeah. If you're an artist looking to sample, it's not a complicated process. I mean, depending on who the artist is that you're looking to sample, I mean, they may put you through the ringer if the publisher doesn't want you to put it on your piece of work, or if the owner of the master for whatever reason doesn't want to give you permission. I mean, that's something else. But in terms of a process, it's a simple process. It takes 2 phone calls, one to the publisher and one to the master.
And most of them are amenable to it because it means more money for them.
Most would, depending on how you want to use it.
Right.
And it also depends. Again, it depends on the publisher. Yeah, some of them might, some of them might not.
So let me get back to Bill for a second. You met him in '94, and as Kiss fans, we know that from the '70s he took care of Kiss, and then there was Billy Idol in the '80s, and so on and so forth. What was he doing from '94 on? Was he still managing?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
In '94, the whole reason I met him is because he was looking to manage the group that I was playing with.
Right.
And that was short-lived for me because I ended up leaving the group.
I got it. It's the Derek Citron band.
Citron.
Citron.
Yeah.
Me and names. What are we going to do?
Yeah, that's a vodka, I think, that you're thinking of. Citron.
Right.
Yeah, but I ended up leaving the group, which is the best thing that could have ever happened to that group. But
Not for you. It wasn't the best thing for you.
No,
it's the best thing for
them.
them.
Well, certainly for the band. They got a much better bass player, who actually is Fernando Perdomo, who was actually very active. Actually, that's a very interesting story. He was managed by Bill as recently as 2009, and we can get into that later. But he's still very active out in L.A. In any case, so he was managing. He was managing that group, our group. He was managing Flip. He was managing... he was looking at a couple of others. He was managing Joe Stark, who's a blues. He was a blues prodigy at the age of 12 out of New Orleans, or out of Louisiana, and he's now actually in a duo. And anyways, he's doing his thing. He's doing fairly well, and so he was managing a handful of acts. And Flip was probably the longest running,
right?
And I think they ended up disbanding, right? Because Kai went to L.A. and Bryn did his own thing. Yeah, because I don't think Bill ever left them
right now.
He's with the
the Oddfathers. Yeah,
Oddfathers. So Bill never left them. I don't think Bill left the Derek Citron band. Wow, I think I stopped paying attention after I left the group. That's horrible, isn't it?
I know the feeling.
No. I mean, Derek is a really good friend of mine. He's like a brother.
Right.
But I think, again, when I left the band, I was kind of doing my own thing. And I do remember now, they stopped working together. But Bill kept managing, and Bill actually kept managing throughout the late 90s and into the 2000s and up until he passed away. The last groups being, most notably, Lordi, from...
that's right,
Lordi
Eurovision. From
Eurovision.
Iceland, where are they from?
No. Finland, thank you.
Right. But they were on Eurovision, the winners, a couple of years ago.
The winners, which is, talk about going from ABBA in '74 or whatever to Lordi. That's bizarre. By the way, little trivia. I don't know if this is trivia. Bill and I had actually talked about... What's that?
It's minutia. It's not trivia.
At one point, Bill and I had talked about whether Bill could put ABBA back together.
All right.
We actually had that conversation. Neither here nor there. But he did work with Lordi, and most recently, before he passed away, he had signed Tantric. And it was in the middle of their first tour with Bill that he passed away. So yeah, always managing.
Always managed. And he also was involved in a small run of the Who's Quadrophenia, sort of a stage presentation that went out to, I think it was in California, and I think that before you had mentioned out in the UK or went over to Europe.
Right.
What was all
that about?
Yeah, what was all that about?
Bill actually, although Bill obviously is mostly known for being a music manager, he's actually been involved in a number of things.
Right.
Lots of dealings that actually have nothing to do with entertainment at all. But the Quadrophenia thing, and Bryn can correct me if I'm wrong, or so can Bill. But again, that happened through, I think Bryn, of Flip, had introduced Bill to a man by the name of Bill Schultz, who was a huge fan of The Who. And I think he was a writer. I believe he wrote that entire production, if I'm not mistaken. And Bill had met... Bill Aucoin had met Bill Schultz, I think, in L.A. I think Bill Schultz was interested in having Bill come on board as a consultant, because Bill obviously had done stage work with Kiss. And so Bill was very much involved in the development of that production.
Okay.
And you're right. I think in the States they only did a couple of. I think they only did a couple of productions in California. One maybe in New York, and the rest I think was touring in the UK.
Yeah, I mean from what I researched, I saw Anaheim as being where it sort of happened.
Yes, that's correct.
And
Yeah, and then a couple of, not a couple, then a run in not even the whole UK. I think it was maybe just Great Britain. Yeah, because I don't think it ever hit Ireland. But they did a number of shows over there, and apparently did fairly well.
And so you've gotten into band management as well.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you manage
For
these
better or
days?
for worse. Well, actually, I came into that because in 2001,
Right.
A buddy of mine, Ryan, who was a sound engineer at a club down here, had asked me to come see this band. He says, "You're going to love this group." And I didn't manage anybody. I was in advertising marketing. And he brought me over to see
But that's
this.
similar, right?
Well, as I would come to find out, yeah, it
Yeah.
actually is. So I came to see this band that at the time, was very much, they were kind of a U2 meets Duran Duran meets In Excess. Their name was Nothing Rhymes with Orange. And I completely fell for the group. This is a group I probably always wanted to be in.
Doesn't door hinge rhyme with that, with orange?
People have said that, but I don't think that counts. Door hinge orange. Yeah, you need that in there somewhere.
Yeah, you do. But go on. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. So in any case, I fell in love with the group, and I actually started working with them independently of Bill.
Okay.
And I started doing marketing materials for them and this and that. And then I said, guys, let's try a college radio campaign. I've never done one, but let's try it. And so we did, and I think that's when Bill and I started talking about maybe working the band together. So what it came down to was Bill was really working it, on the top level, and I was working the everyday business.
Right.
So Bill was lining up the auditions with large labels, talking to some of the agencies, and I was doing a lot of the day-to-day work.
So a band comes to you fresh off the streets. How do you get them to that next level? Explain to a band that wants to get to that next level. What does a manager need to do? What do you need to do to bring them from the guys off the street to the guys playing Madison Square Garden?
I'm still figuring that out because I haven't got anybody to Madison Square Garden. So I'm not sure how to answer that question. But I'll tell you this. Look, I certainly have my own opinions about the group that I was working with, Nothing Rhymes with Orange. I knew what I wanted to do with them. And actually, Bill and I butted heads about that.
Okay.
Because Bill came from this very flamboyant, background of Kiss, Billy Idol. This band was nothing like that. This band was more akin to Interpol. I don't know if you know Interpol.
They arrest people around the world.
No, the group.
Oh, just kidding. Yeah, no,
okay.
of course.
Although actually, I think they did get arrested in Aberdeen. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think Interpol was involved. But they were a different kind of group. And Bill had suggestions that I just completely thought were just blatantly wrong. I think that would have made him closer to the Kiss, and that's not who the band was.
Okay.
So that's not to say that Bill didn't have a lot of insight into the band that I actually learned a lot from. So to answer your question, how do you take a band from here to there? I don't know because I haven't gotten a band there yet. I'm still figuring that out. But certainly, with those guys, we had to start really, we had to start at the beginning because the band, it was still very rough around the edges. The music still had to be worked out. The performances needed to be worked out, let alone the marketing, and then take them to the labels. We didn't take them to the labels until, if we started working with them in 2001, we didn't get them to the first label until maybe 2004, 2005.
Wow.
So it was 3 years of
Hard
serious work.
Okay.
Yeah. With some of the other bands, like Flip, for instance, Flip pretty much had it. What was great about Flip is they had it all going on. Bill had to do very little except work his Bill magic. They didn't need a whole lot of help. And again, you guys should talk to Bryn and Kai to figure out how Bill interacted with them. For the bands that I'm currently working with, which ironically are bands that had Bill been here, he might have been working with because they actually stemmed from Bill's situations.
Okay.
One is a band called Spider Rockets from New Jersey. And this one's interesting because Spider Rockets had reached out to Bill in 2009 or 10 and to his office in New York. And Bill had said something about Spider Rockets to me. At least the name had been talked about, and but he never had time to do anything with them. He had just signed Tantric, and Bill passed away in June of 2010.
Yep.
And the band, I think, gave me 3 months to kind of, recover. And they reached out to me, and we started talking. And again, I'm trying to follow your question. How do you
But I'm
take
also
them from
trying
here to
to
there?
I'm also trying to figure out how you get them from here to there in 2014, because you go back to Bill in 1973, and
Hmm.
you've got this flamboyant stage show with guys with makeup, and they're doing something a little crazy, and you bring them over to a record company, and you do a showcase at Latang, and next thing you know, you've got them signed. But in 2014, we sort of seen all the crazy, from Madonna to Kiss to whatever,
Yeah.
and there
It.
really aren't any record labels. There's iTunes and Google Play. I mean, how what do you
I mean,
do?
there's the labels. Look at it. Well, look at, you're absolutely right. Um, Back then, if you worked hard, right, and you were talented,
Right,
and people showed you the way you could get from A to B.
right. And we hadn't seen a
Eh,
lot of the tricks either.
What's that?
And we hadn't seen a lot of the tricks. I mean, when the Beatles
Of
came out and
course.
they had long hair, we go, "Oh, they have long hair." And then, Alice Cooper came out and we went, "Oh, Alice Cooper."
Well,
But
yeah, a
we've
lot of them
seen it
had
all
long hair, but
now.
no, you're right. That was new. That whole Kiss
Right.
thing, as it was developed, was a brand new, thing. So you're absolutely right. How do you do this? Um, I think I can only rely on what I know. What I know is marketing, PR.
Right.
For me, well, first of all, look at there's definitely got to be talent, and that's not a diehard rule, because listen to the radio. I mean, how much talentless crap is out there? I'll be the first one to say it. There's a lot of crap on radio.
I'll be
So
the first to agree with you. Madonna's not the greatest singer, but she's got something.
no,
Kiss are
but
not the best players, but they've got something. Poison. It's about more
no,
than talent.
no, I agree. No, but I'm talking about. I think there's people out there who have none of the above, and still got through to radio. Because the truth is, if you have the right muscle behind you,
Right.
you're going to get there, and if you're persistent.
Right.
And there is one thing, and I don't know if Bill said this. I certainly say it. You may suck, but if you have persistence, and you have motivation, you'll probably get there. So I've known plenty of great musicians, plenty of great songwriters that just could not maintain that lifestyle.
Right.
But again, to answer your question, yeah, it's interesting, and I don't quite know. With a band like Spider Rockets, this is probably the hardest working band I've ever seen. They've toured on their own, they've done everything on their own, built a fan base online, which we're talking about 2014. How do you do it? Online to
Right.
a great degree. But I have to tell you, I think that right now, and I think this is partly also my advertising philosophy. Whatever everybody's doing, do the complete opposite. Because once you saturate the market with one methodology, you've seen it. It's been seen. It's been done. There's nothing new. Do something different.
Right. And that was sort of my
So
point.
right, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with Spider Rocket. Same thing with another band I'm working with in Miami. It's called the Super Fuzz, and they also had the Bill connection, because Fernando Perdomo, the guy I told you about,
Right.
that why did I bring his name up? Well,
He
we
was
were
the
Bill
he was the bass player that replaced you in that
that
band.
replaced me in the Derek Cintron band. He ended up putting his own project together in 2008,
Right.
and he reached out to me, and he was also caught in a little bit of a legal bind. He reached out to me and Bill, so Bill and I started working with him, and then he joined this band, the Super Fuzz, and then he moved to LA, and then Bill passed away, and I started working with the Super Fuzz. So these bands all have this kind of Bill connection. But again, with the Super Fuzz, and as well as Spider Rockets, for me, it's really kind of been, it's to make them stand out has been an exercise in PR.
Right.
Because, like I said, for me, the music has to be there, the songs have to be there, the band has to be there. And these are two bands that have it all in check. Their stage presence, fantastic. Their songs, I think, are fantastic. They're hard workers. So what do you do to differentiate yourself, right? And I'm not sure. I think everybody in the music industry is looking for that answer. For me, I think it comes down to really PR and getting them out on the road. These are certainly two bands that I think are going to win people over by being out on the road. But, these days, getting an agency, a booking agency behind you, is almost more difficult than getting a record label behind you, because there's no money to be made off record sales. All the money is pretty much coming either from the live end or from licensing.
Right. And
So,
I've dealt with bands on the live end, and venues don't want to book you if it's not going to be a sellout. Nobody wants to take a chance on an
Right.
unknown band, and so you're stuck with like, well, for us to be known, we got to play, but you won't let us play if we're not known. And you go,
It's a chicken or the egg thing.
it's like, well, okay, so I go play for mom at the barbecue again, but that's not going to get me to
Well,
Madison Square Garden.
I will tell you what's worked for me,
Right.
and maybe this seems naive, but what has worked for, well, it's not naive because it has worked to a certain degree. What we have been able to do with we did with Nothing Rhymes with Orange, what we did with Spider Rockets, actually they had done it on their own before I came on board, and what we did with Super Fuzz, we went back to radio. People say radio's dead. Listen, I think, like I said, it's everything. Life is cyclical.
Right.
And
Every 20 years, stuff comes back.
Yep. And just like there were all these record labels, in the 50s and 60s, throughout the 70s and 80s, they devoured each other up. And now look, we have all these indie labels that are actually small enough to be nimble to actually service their clients, whereas the big mammoth labels can't really handle a band that needs development. So you're starting to see all these indie labels, come out of the ground and actually do well. And I think it's the same for media. With the advent of the internet, okay, let's go to the internet, and a lot of bands found success there. Well, I'm finding that I'm able to get from point A to point B by going to radio, specifically college radio. Okay. And this doesn't work for everybody because every band is not college radio friendly. And college radio that's a whole science in and of itself. We can have a talk about that at some other point.
Right.
College radio is always morphing from one year to the next. But I've worked college radio. I've been a college radio promoter since Nothing Rhymes with Orange. And I developed the college radio promotion only as a means of getting this band somewhere. And what college radio was able to do for us was, it's much easier to get your music in college radio, obviously, than it is on commercial radio. So we worked it enough. We worked a couple of records to at least start showing numbers and tell a story, do interviews, get the bands out to those markets. And then with Nothing Rhymes with Orange specifically, they were a very Brit-oriented band. So we took what we did with college radio in the States, and we went to the UK and said, hey, UK, look at what we did over here in America. And they said, well, that's interesting. Bring them on over. So we went over to the UK. The idea was to then make stuff happen in the UK, bring them back to the States and go, hey, United States, look at what we just did in the UK. So I mean, I consider that PR. It's building a story. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so that
can I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
Is the UK market or the European market the same as the American market in terms of building up a band, or is it two completely different things where social media is different and college? Is it two different business models?
I haven't worked the UK market since right before Bill passed away.
Okay, 2008, 2009.
2000, yeah, since 2000. Well, 2010 is actually when he passed away. That's probably when I really stopped dealing with the UK. Well, not stopped dealing, but I'm not working with the UK as much anymore.
Right.
I will tell you what, and America may get pissed off at me, but it's just a fact. The UK is one place where people actually still go out to see live music. Right. And maybe I'm very jaded because I live in Miami. And Miami is mostly about DJ culture. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of rap. There's a lot of Latin. Although I have to tell you, Miami has a thriving, certainly indie rock scene. Fort Lauderdale used to have a serious hard rock scene. And there's a couple of bands that came out of here, from Marilyn Manson to, I can't remember the others off the top of my head, but there's quite a few of them. So we had a scene, but I'm a little bit jaded because, certainly recently, not recently, over last number of years, people here don't really care to go out and see live music. I mean, you really have to pull hen's teeth for that to happen. But I've found actually in a lot of markets, it's kind of the same way. If you're a young band, to get people to come out and see you, it is tough. And in the UK, it seems people are more conducive to going out and seeing live music. And they will go out and see a new group. Doesn't mean they're not into their EDM and to their hip-hop and everything else, but people will still come out to see live music. And reactions seem to be a lot more passionate to music in the UK. Maybe just from my observation. We took this band around the States, and certainly there were people that really liked the band. I'm talking about Nothing Rhymes with Orange. But in the UK, you'd get some real serious reactions from people. Listen, maybe I just didn't go to the right venues in the States. To me, I think the UK is more of a live audience, at least when it comes to music on that level, on local level, on a small level. Because none of those bands were ever signed. Nothing Was Orange was never signed to a record label. So for an unsigned band, a band that was just getting a little bit of radio in the UK, we certainly got a lot more mileage in the UK than we did here in the States.
You know, I can agree with that, especially as a rock journalist who's gone to venues. There seems to be two things going on in the North American market. Uh, Either you're a big, well-established band and you can do no wrong, and like a Kiss or a
Mm-hmm.
Madonna, like I said before. Otherwise, there's just a lot of empty venues. If you get a
Yeah,
shot, there's just nobody there. And I've been at shows where there's been 12 people standing around. You go, wow, they're on Warner or they're on Universal. How is it that there's only 12 people here tonight? And I don't get it. So either you're a known entity or you just don't exist.
exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of medium level bands. I mean, that will fill the 500 seaters and whatnot. But it just for my what I love about working with musicians is working this stage. I haven't had the satisfaction that Bill had of having a band crossover yet into the big time,
Right.
and hopefully we're changing that right now. But I love the process of developing a group. It's a creative process. I love that. I love the process of figuring out the puzzle and figuring out how to get from A to B. So this is fun for me.
What role does social media play in that?
Well, that's how you build a fan base to a great degree.
Is
I
it the
mean,
only way? I mean,
oh, I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. Well, like I said, look at these. Take a band like Spider Rockets. They do great on social media. They have like 96,000 Twitter followers. They have 25,000 Facebook followers.
wow.
Problem is, social media doesn't always translate to bodies in the seats. You
Oh,
know
it
what I
doesn't.
mean? Or yeah. So you need something else, and you need a story, and you need sometimes some promo dollars. But that is all again where I think college radio has helped us. Also, where PR helps you, whether it's by getting reviews out of your record, stories on your band. But I think all those things have to coalesce to really, develop that draw. But yeah, beyond that, it's been few and far between where I've seen any band, a regional or local band, that really draws a massive crowd. And again, maybe I'm sheltered because I live in Miami. But I haven't seen a whole lot of it here or elsewhere.
If you're sheltered living in Miami, have you given thought to moving to a place like Vegas or LA or New York where it might be more sort of music centric in terms of
I,
doing
you
what
know
you're
what?
doing?
At the end of the day, I love this place. I love Miami.
You can tell.
I actually had thought of maybe going to New York or maybe going to LA because I love both. New York maybe a little bit more. Even thought about I thought about moving to Montreal, but that was really before I started working in music. Um, it's crossed my mind. I probably wouldn't take the notion seriously unless I knew that my move meant there would be a definite change in finding some success. Then maybe, but the truth is, look, I also have another career, which is marketing and advertising. Actually, as it turns out, now I'm finding I have like 3 careers, and I'm not sure I can juggle them all. So I'm not going to move anywhere for any one specific, career. We'll see how that plays out because right now things are very interesting.
We'll see how it plays out. And I'll ask you two final questions. One is this sort of the Kiss geek question. There was a Kiss Monopoly board made out of glass that there was only 5 ever made. Do you still have that? Or did you ever
No,
see that?
I only saw it in pictures. Bill had taken a picture with one of the boards at Rosemary's house,
Do you know what
but he
happened
never
to it?
brought it down. I'm sorry.
Do you know what happened to it? Is it in the vault?
I'm not the one I don't have the combination to.
Correct.
Uh, I don't know. I suspect I may know what happened to it, and it's something I'd rather not get into. But I'm
Okay.
not even sure if that's the case.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then let me ask you this as a final question. Uh, what is
How long have we
Bill?
been talking?
Well,
Holy crap, an hour.
50
Wow.
minutes. I'll go all night. I'm having a good time here, but I figure in Miami you've probably got to go out to the beach or something while I go shovel some
No,
snow
no. By the
later.
way, isn't this pathetic? It's a Saturday night. Both you and I are sitting. You're in your office. I'm in my
I
office.
know. And what's funny is that my Montreal Canadiens are playing your Florida Panthers right now, and we're doing this instead. So
Oh wow. So actually, we shouldn't even be talking to each other if
no,
that's what they're doing.
that's what they're
They're
doing.
knocking it out. Yeah, that's
We should
wow.
go watch that. But what is Bill Aucoin's legacy, and how did he sort of change rock? Because Kiss, like it or not, did change rock. But what is Bill Aucoin's legacy? Can you even answer
In
that?
rock, in rock.
In general, well, in rock and in general,
Okay, let me. I'll address both
because
if I
he
can,
did
because
it.
I don't want to. Yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
want to say in rock and not
no,
answer
no. I mean,
otherwise.
as a person,
Um, well, look at in rock. I mean, he created Las Vegas for the rock world.
yes,
He created Vegas for the rock world. That didn't
absolutely,
exist. There
absolutely.
were bands that might have been showy and this and that, but he engineered Las Vegas in the rock world. I think that says it. And we're talking about Kiss.
Yeah.
It was
Well, I,
biggest
I
show.
I'll sum up Bill in one word: visionary.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And by the way, let's explore this if you got a few minutes.
I've got as
Um,
long as you want.
all right. You know, and besides the big show, Bill, like I said, was a brilliant business guy, and it wasn't just the Vegas; it was the merchandising empire that he
Hmm.
created. You know, on top
Absolutely.
of that, yeah, that didn't exist. I mean, I know the Beatles had some stuff, but I mean, let's face it, Kiss dwarfed everything.
Yeah.
Um, so if you want to talk about his legacy, I mean, there's that. Um, in rock also how to take something that doesn't work and making it work, because Kiss,
Didn't work.
yeah, well, it should have worked, but nobody wanted to make it work. Everybody was an naysayer,
Hey.
and Bill's masterful at taking a situation where you get no, at every corner, and turning them all to yeses, or not even turning them all to yeses, but you know uh, just getting beyond the no's and making it happen regardless, with nobody's help if necessary. But the same thing with Billy Idol. Billy Idol was not a wanted man in the States.
No, not at all.
Uh, and Bill made it happen. And he teamed him with Steve Stevens. And he pulled a few, sleight of hand tricks with the record label. And before you know it, you had the dance club spinning Billy Idol. And all of a sudden the radio stations are going, what the fuck? Where's the song? Why don't we have the song? So Bill is masterful at that. Oh, and I was going to say something else. We started talking about Kiss and what Bill.
Well, I do want to go back to your point about the merchandising, because
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Band merchandising did not exist. And you had, the Led Zeppelins, and you had the Beatles, and you had Supremes, and you had all kinds of bands doing all kinds of stuff. But until Kiss came into the world, you didn't have, playing cards and dice and Monopoly boards
yeah.
and trinkets and did you ever talk to Bill about that? How much of that was him, and how much of that was Gene Simmons, and how much, or was it sort of this thing that went through?
Again, we didn't talk a whole lot about Kiss, and that's something actually I wish I'd found out more about. And by the way, Mitch, you'll find out, as pathetic as the statement is, you're going to find a lot of people, friends of ours and friends of Bill's, that actually probably know a lot more of the details about all this stuff, including the merchandising. And
Right.
and I should probably know those details, because I was with him for so long. But as I've said, I was kind of busy also worrying about myself and what I had to get done. Um, I know, I don't know that Bill had all these ideas. I don't know that Gene did either. I think it was a lot of people looking to license the Kiss name, and I think Bill maybe just had the foresight to really build a company to really channel all that stuff through, as opposed to just making it a loosey goosey kind of operation. And not to take credit away from Gene, because again, I don't know how much of it was Gene saying or Bill saying.
Well, I think it was a team. Let's
I
go with
think
it was a
it
team.
probably was. It probably was, and probably the other Kiss members as well, to some degree. I don't
Absolutely.
know for sure, but I know that Bill certainly welcomed it with open arms and created a business structure around it.
Yeah, that never existed. I mean, you didn't have Alice Cooper dolls back in 1977. I mean, it just didn't
Hmm.
exist. Um, so I guess that, I mean, I had asked you what Bill's legacy was, but I also had asked you how did he change rock, and I guess that's sort of one of the answers right there, right?
Well, yeah, he created a merchandising empire that worked in tandem with the rock arena, and he created. Listen, I think he launched I think every rock show that you see today, most rock shows, in some way borrow from Kiss.
Agreed.
And by the way, I also got to give credit in this interview to Kenny Anderson. You know, Kenny passed away in December.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Anderson was the production manager for Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny was a good friend of Bill's, and he was a friend of mine who actually, don't want to get off on the tangent, but Bill and I were living here. We actually live in Hallandale, Florida. Lived here for a number of years before one day we got a call from Kenny Anderson, who Bill hadn't talked to in 20 years. Turns out Kenny was living 6 blocks from us the entire time.
And never met at the Safeway.
Yeah, no. Well, we don't have a Safeway. We have a Winn-Dixie and a Walmart and a Publix. But in any case, you know, Kenny had a lot to do with that. Kenny's the one to agree to get that. At least made the show run. But in any case, so yeah, what is his legacy in rock? I think it's that. I think it's the merchandising. I think it's you know, the show that we see today. I think most shows that you see today, to a great degree, borrow from Kiss. Look, Garth Brooks has been public in saying that Kiss was a great inspiration to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's certainly a legacy in rock. You know, but the other thing, and I don't know if this is a legacy that he so much left behind, but, you know, Bill, as a manager and as a person, which is, I'd like to talk about his legacy as a human being. That sounds corny and trite.
Let me frame the question this way. How would you like Bill to be remembered?
I'd like Bill to be remembered. God, there's so many adjectives. Someone who is first and foremost genuine.
Yep.
Never a put on. He never put on a face for anybody. Kind as kind could be. But if he had to rip you down, oh, he would. But he was always very kind, extremely generous, inspiring. Bill was like a drug, in a way that I've never seen anybody be. He just had this way of, you know, when Bill died, I left his phone on. Actually, it's still, oh, Jesus. Oops. I got to call the phone company. But I left his phone on with his outgoing message. I know of a handful of people in the music industry who would encounter a problem, a situation, or were just down, and they just call Bill. And they may have nothing to do with Bill professionally anymore, but they would call Bill, either just to get perked up or to get a little bit of insight. Actually, I'm glad I'm telling you this, because I don't think anybody knows that. And that was, well, it wasn't surprising to me, because that's the whole reason I ended up with Bill, because Bill sparked something in me that nobody ever has.
Well, how did he inspire you?
He was optimistic. He had a way of getting you to leave all the petty, inconsequent bullshit,
Right,
and put it aside and concentrate on, this is what really matters. Focus on this, and here's how you go about it. And to
believe in yourself.
What's that?
And to believe in yourself. I get a sense
absolutely. Listen, Bill, again, I wasn't there when he was working with Kiss in the early days, or with Squire, or with Idol, but I've seen how he worked with artists. I see how he worked with us. I see how he worked with the other bands. And yeah, he would give you the confidence to really get out there. And I mean, listen, if you couldn't get yourself up by the bootstraps after a talk with Bill, then okay, well, there's only so much he can do. But generally, Bill nailed it. And he was just if there was a party, the party could be happening, but the second Bill walks in the door, not because he was Kiss's manager, everybody just lights up with a smile. And then the party really gets started.
Larger than life.
He was larger than life. He was this electric personality. My mom, my mom. I had to introduce Bill to my mom at some point,
Right.
who's a very conservative Cuban lady. And I'm thinking, oh boy, how is this going to go down? She's just finding out her son is gay. And this guy's 25 years older than him. How is that going to go down? And Bill was a charmer too. God, he was a charmer. And Bill he could be a ribber. He liked to take jabs just to kind of have fun a little bit. And the first encounter with my mom, he charmed her, but like I said before, Bill was never a put on. It was always real. My mom fell in love with him. Bill almost became like a son. He just had that kind of
charisma.
You know what they talk about the X factor?
Yeah.
He had the X factor like nobody's business I've ever seen.
May I just go back to that story for a second?
Yeah.
Seeing that your mom was a very conservative Cuban lady, and there was a 25-year, were you surprised by her reaction? I mean, did you just sort of expect her to throw her right out?
I was blown away. Well, couldn't throw him out because we're at a restaurant.
Right, but metaphorically, did you expect for her to just say, "Hey"?
This was supposed to go down like a Led Zeppelin, which is how they got their name. This was supposed to go down really bad, and I was.
What a great sense of relief.
It was. It was. How cool is that? I mean, your gay son's dating a guy who's 25 years older, and she's totally cool. Not even totally. She loved him to bits. When's Bill coming over? I want to make arroz con pollo for him. You know what? Can we go out? She fell in love with him. He was like that. He just, I don't know. Some people just have it and some people don't. Most people don't that I know, but he did.
If this is too personal, just, refuse to answer it. But did that change your relationship with your mother? Did you find a new respect for her and go, hey, wait a minute, maybe she's not this conservative lady that I thought was anti, did it change things?
No. Listen, listen. I think one's relationship with their parents is always complicated, but no, that per se didn't. It was, however, it was an eye opener. It was an eye opener because I didn't think that this would really go down this way, and it was, it certainly put things at ease, and that was cool. So yeah.
And that sort of, I think that sort of sums up Bill Aucoin. It's just that he had this larger than life personality, and he just had this magnetic, charismatic character.
Yeah, I'd love for that to be his real legacy. I mean, certainly it's got to be counted what he did in the rock arena and what he did with these bands and how he just changed the industry. But to me personally, it would mean more if people really look at we're working to hopefully do something at some point where we're going to be able to introduce Bill to people, however that may manifest itself.
Right.
I would want for people to get to know not what Bill's timeline was, what his list of achievements were, which, by the way, there's lots that we'll have to do a lot of these interviews to talk about. But no, I'd love people to get to know who he was as a person because that dwarfs everything else.
And unfortunately, that's what gets lost in a lot of these interviews because it's all about, tell me about Paul, tell me about Gene, tell me about Billy. And you forget that, well, there was Bill.
Yeah. But you know what I would suggest? If people want to know, go interview some of the groups that he was working with. Go interview the staff at Aucoin Management. Yeah. Go interview Flip. Go interview Nothing Wrong. Go interview these people and see, and maybe even beyond the acts, but his friends who were also in the music industry. So maybe it's still relevant to what you're doing because obviously it's a music talk show,
right?
Or interview. But talk to those people about who Bill was as a person, and yeah, people just don't know because all the talk has always been about Kiss or about Idol or Squire. But ask them about Bill the person, and it's really cool.
It really is, and I think we actually have covered a lot about Bill the person in this interview.
Yeah.
And we also got a lot of good
Thank you for that.
information for young bands that want to start out in this business because 2014, it's just not obvious. I mean,
and listen, don't follow my advice because, like I said, I haven't crossed over. I'm still trying to figure. 5 years from now, this guy's gonna say, "I saw Roman on this thing with Mitch." What an idiot that guy is. You may not be far from the truth. No, listen. What I'm saying is certainly try something different. I can tell you what's worked for me. CMJ radio, college radio has worked for me to develop a story. Those are grounds that you can build a story on. certainly getting out there and playing live, and then getting a little bit of PR and a little bit of print. I think also developing a market. I think if you develop a market, but I don't think that's necessarily true anymore, because in this world we're no longer living in a singular market; it's a global market. So, we're all trying to figure it out, man. I'm right there with you.
It's really tough. Is there anywhere that people can find you online, or is there a Bill Aucoin page? Is there?
You know what? You know what? I'm gonna pitch everything right now.
Good.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. The Bill Aucoin, the Aucoin Globe website is a tribute to Bill, and that's the way it's going to stay until further notice. Don't go to my webpage because it's an advertising website, and what do you care? My Facebook, if you want to say hi, absolutely. Bill's Facebook, certainly encourage it. A lot of people have come to that page. I welcome everybody. People have been fantastic. Go there. Check out the groups that I'm working with. Check out the Super Fuzz. Go to the superfuzz.com. Go to the spiderrockets.com. Lyn Christopher, who we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
Go to lynchristopher.com. Keep checking. Lyn Christopher, that's going to be a really interesting story, and see what happens there. But all these groups are groups that I'm working with, and a little duo out of LA called yearofsuns.com. So these are all groups I'm working with. I don't have everything consolidated into one website. I probably will very soon. There's a specific reason I'm not doing that, but check all those guys out. And if you can't remember, shoot me a note and I'll remind you.
Yeah, and I guess at some point I should be interviewing all those people, right? At some point.
Sure. I would hope so.
So there you go.
How's the game going, by the way?
Pardon me?
The game.
I don't know. I don't have it. Hold on. I'll get a quick update on the iPhone.
I've never asked about a Panthers game in my life, but because this is happening in real time while Miami's talking to Montreal, I feel like I need to know.
I'll hold on. I'll get the schedule right here up. It's 12 minutes to go in the third period. Montreal up 3-1. So there you go.
Well, that's expected, isn't it?
Well,
did I just say that Miami's going to kick my ass now?
I guess sort of. I mean, since you don't follow it that closely, Florida is the 28th team in the league. Montreal's number 9 in the league. Yeah, you would sort of expect.
I see that. I see, yeah.
The
scales are tipped just a little bit.
And when I was watching the first period, the audience pretty much, or the crowd in Florida, all seemed to be wearing Montreal regalia. I think all our snowbirds were down there cheering on the team. So,
that happens down here. We have a huge segment of the Canadian population this time of year, especially where I live, in this building and in this town. A lot of Quebecians, a lot of people from, Toronto not as much, but Quebec, absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, isn't there a part of Florida called Little Quebec? Sort of.
Is there?
They talk about it in our local media, so I'm assuming there is. Or
I don't know about it. If it is, it's probably in this building. It's probably on the second floor.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Roman, thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic.
It's been very cool. I appreciate it.
And I hope it was a nice angle that we took to it and everything.
Yeah. And again, I wherever it was going to go, as long as we pay respect to the man, which I'm happy for. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Hold on one second. I'll just turn off the recorder.